Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes Reacts. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we are the Office Blokes. It is true.
Yeah.
What we got going on at the moment, Office Bloke Mike? Anything interesting?
Interesting. It's
No.
the facts.
Okay, fair enough.
We're on Patreon channel. Yeah, go and have a look at patreon.com. Put in Office Blokes React. You'll find us there. Block content, exclusive stuff.
Yep.
Our tiers start just £1.50, believe it or not, which is cheap as chips. But yeah, if you want to support
How
us,
cheap are chips?
it'd be absolutely
£1.50.
Yeah, £1.50.
Have they?
I'm not sure, probably about £3 actually.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, these days, bit pricey, but yeah, go down there and check it out.
Nice, yeah. Link below will take you everywhere you need to go. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that. We do appreciate the support on Patreon. Big
We do.
time. You can even get on our Discord server.
Discord, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
not
there
much
as well,
for a while.
of course.
That is a thing. Right, most expensive mistakes in history. Mine was buying a house.
And not staying in it.
We're buying a house for
That
someone else.
luxury log burner you've got, you can no longer use.
Time will tell. So we love infographics anyway. So I mean, it's going to be good.
Yeah,
we'll get
they're
into
always
it.
good, aren't they?
Most expensive mistakes in history. I wonder if it'll be the guy. If there'll be. There was a guy who had loads of Bitcoin on a laptop, and it
Yeah,
got
he was on his
thrown
PC
out.
and he couldn't find his PC, could he? He got ditched.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's still going through a landfill apparently, looking for it.
Really?
Yeah,
and he
but-
paid someone, didn't he? If like a commission, if they can find it.
Yeah,
in the
but
landfill.
I think it's worth hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
if
Really?
not billions.
I don't get all this Bitcoin bit. I must admit.
Bitcoin bit.
Bitcoin bit.
Bits.
Bitcoin.
Bits of
I just
coins.
don't get it.
Anyway, we'll get into it. Most expensive mistakes in history. Let's do it.
Imagine how it would feel to hit the jackpot at one point in your life, but to not even realize it until years later. To be involved in the early stages of a startup that would go on to become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, but then walk away practically penniless before it had even gained momentum. It would probably be similar to that feeling you get when you put off buying a plane ticket, then check the airline website a few weeks later to find the price has doubled. If you want to feel better about yourself for all the times you wasted or lost money, then keep watching. Your slip-ups won't even come close to these ridiculously expensive historic mistakes. I bet you $10,000. Let's start off modestly. And by modest, I mean a mistake that cost less than $100 million. That's how expensive we're talking for the rest of this video. In 2014, a French train company ordered 2,000 new trains for its cross-country railways. The manufacturer proceeded to design, make, and ship out these trains, only for the French officials to have a horrible realization. The trains they'd ordered were too wide to actually fit on the rails.
Wow.
How could this have happened? Turns out those officials failed to measure all the stations. Some of the rails fit the train perfectly, but others were 50 years older and much thinner. Amazingly, everyone had forgotten that there were railways of different sizes. The good news is that they didn't need to throw away the trains, but the bad news is that the only way to solve the problem was to widen all the older, thinner rails to make them the right size for the trains. There were over 1,000 stations to change, making the total cost $68.4 million. That's on top of the $28.5 billion it cost to make the trains in the first place. But if you thought that
Nothing compared.
They were probably due an upgrade anyway,
He's the
though, weren't
Bitcoin
they?
guy.
You think so, wouldn't you?
But it happened to my dad, didn't it? You know the story, right? My dad,
Not sure.
when he got offered half the business that was in startup.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's a huge business nowadays.
Probably one of the biggest in the world.
Yeah, clothing company.
Clothing, yeah, in apparel, yeah.
Yeah, I remember you saying about that. Now that's crazy, isn't it?
bad, wait until you heard about the other guy who had single-handedly lost more than $100 million. Investing in Bitcoin at its low and selling during the peak is an investor's dream. But the only people crazy enough to buy Bitcoin in its early days were a few technology aficionados with a passion for cybersecurity. One of them was the British IT worker James Howells. Can you see where I'm going with this? Howells mined a whopping 7,500 Bitcoins back in 2013. Do you know how much a single Bitcoin is worth now? Yeah. Unfortunately, James got careless and one day he decided he wanted a new computer, so he broke his old laptop into parts so he could sell them individually. Although he had the foresight to keep the hard drives in case the Bitcoins did gain value one day. Let's face it, keeping a hard drive worth millions lying around in your house is a disaster waiting to happen. One day, the man was cleaning his house when he accidentally placed the hard drive in the trash can. The trash ended up in the landfill site and James didn't even notice until years later. Bitcoin eventually hit its peak, leaving James's collection to be worth a whopping $127 million, in theory. Except there was absolutely no way of accessing it. Naturally, James did everything he could try to retrieve his Bitcoins, turning up at the landfill and begging his local council to let him search for the hard drive himself, but it was no luck. The officials deemed searching through a landfill a safety risk due to the potential of toxic gases and fires. Alas, James was forced to soldier on, knowing he'd made one of the most expensive mistakes ever. Poor guy. You could say that investing in Bitcoin in the early days is just like winning the lottery.
I would wear a fireproof hazmat chemical suit and just go. So what was the issues? It was the fumes. It was the fire. I just turn up with this ridiculous suit on and go, well, I'm covered then. What else is the problem?
Yeah, I'll give you half.
You can't come in. That's what we'll say.
I'm just going to cry into this suit for the next 10 years while I dig through rubbish.
The way I see it, it's worth nothing. It doesn't matter. He's never going to find it.
But it doesn't exist.
Get over it, yeah.
I don't get how. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? It's on the hard drive and it's not sort of somewhere out there.
It only
in
exists.
the cloud or something.
It only exists as code.
Right.
And I don't fully understand it, but the blockchain technology is a way where everyone that has it installed talks to each other.
Yeah.
But the coins that you own only exist on your hard drive,
right.
in a wallet, like a Bitcoin wallet. I think it is. I don't fully get it, but there's no you can't duplicate them. It's crackers.
Wow.
But I think they peaked about 60 grand per Bitcoin.
Where was he? In Leeds? Something like that, wasn't he? This guy.
I think he said Leeds, yeah.
You think
should we go?
You think he'd say to the council, if it's worth 137 million, was it?
Something like that.
I'll give you half, or I'll give you 100
I think he
million.
has.
I'll give you 100 million.
I think he's done that.
Has he?
Yeah, and he's still done a fuck off.
Really?
Yeah, nuisance. It's his own fault. Get over it.
The council could be
anywhere,
couldn't they?
You know what it did say? He mined those Bitcoins, not that he bought those Bitcoins. So
What's
he
that
might.
mean?
Well, when you mine them, essentially I think your computer solves loads of equations that unlocks bits of Bitcoins.
Right.
But the more people do it, you need these crazy supercomputers. It's one of the reasons you can't buy video cards at the moment. You struggle because people just buy them up and make these big rigs that just solve problems which give you Bitcoins.
Yeah. Right.
Essentially, so he
Sounds
mined
like
them.
too much fucking about for me.
Yeah, just to me, I don't understand it, so I'm out.
But he mined them and didn't buy them.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, I don't think he's out of pocket.
No.
He started with nothing. He's got nothing.
Yeah, and he's from
Fair
Leeds.
Yeah, and he's
Bad
from
all
Leeds,
round.
So yeah, gutted, mate.
Losing the coins is like throwing away your winning ticket. But what about actually winning the lottery and losing it? Yep, that's happened too. Some more careless Brits bought a few lottery tickets, one of which went on to be the winner. Imagine the joy, the excitement, your mind racing as you thought about how you'd spend the money. But unfortunately, this pair made a fatal error. They'd also had a few losing tickets, so to avoid confusion, the husband tried to throw away the losing tickets, but you guessed it, he ended up throwing away the winning ticket instead. If ever there was a test of true love,
I would never throw away anything until I've claimed that money and it's in my bank account.
Absolutely nothing at all.
The bins are just pile up in bags in my house.
Nothing
standard.
Don't give it.
Nothing leaves the house.
Nothing leaves the house.
I know two people have won the lottery, big money as well.
Yeah.
Not like little amounts, like multi-millions.
Yeah.
And have you ever had that feeling? I remember once when it first started, the lottery, I remember getting 4 numbers that I knew I definitely had 4, and the other 2 were very close to the ones I thought I'd had. And I tell you what, you get a proper nauseous feeling. I just couldn't eat. I stopped eating and everything. I was like, until I found my ticket. I couldn't find my ticket.
Yeah.
And eventually I found it, and it was 4 numbers used to get you about $1,000.
Yeah.
In the early days,
Yeah.
it was that time when they were like 305 jackpot winners.
Right.
You got like fucking 8 quid.
Oh man, yeah.
it's gotta be that. In some ways, you could say that their lottery ticket was as good as Lost in Space, and it's not the only thing lost in space that's worth millions. In 1998, NASA launched a Mars Climate Orbiter, in other words, a space probe that was sent to orbit Mars and study its atmosphere and surface. As the orbiter left the Earth, little did the engineers know that they'd made a fatal mistake when calibrating the units of measurement on the machine. The team had used English units of measurement instead of the metric system more commonly used for that type of operation. It might not sound like a big deal, but we're talking about rocket science here. Kind of. As a result, the spacecraft team managing the orbiter were using different units to the flight team, and everything was mixed up. Navigation commands were released in one set of units and read in another, and nobody realized until everyone was together to celebrate the entry of the ship into Mars's orbit. Instead, they watched everything go wrong. Due to the problems with unit conversions, the engine of the orbiter fired when it was 100 kilometers closer to Mars than planned and 25 kilometers below the level it was designed to function at. The engine failed to fire once it got to Mars and just continued into the atmosphere, leaving a nice crater behind. The total damage was $193 million. But it gets worse. Far worse. We've all pressed send on a text in a split second only to realize that we had a stupid typo in the message. Most of the time, these messages are simply minor inconveniences or embarrassments, but occasionally, typos can be very expensive. This is one of those occasions. You don't want to make a slip-up like this when you're trading stocks and shares. In 2005, a Japanese broker listed a new company called JCOM at just 610,000 shares for 1 yen each instead of issuing one share for 610,000 yen. Oops, easy mistake. To put that into context, 1 Japanese yen was the equivalent of 0.8 cents in US dollars. All in all, not a bad price for more than 500,000 shares. The number of shares in the order was 41 times more than the number of shares that were actually available, so the broker was left with an order it literally couldn't execute. Yet, even though it was completely nonsensical, they couldn't cancel it. In total, $225 million was lost as a result of the transaction. It was so phenomenal an error that the entire Nikkei 225 index, the Japanese equivalent of the S&P, dropped by almost 2% that day. One broker embarrassed the whole of Japan. I can only imagine how he felt going to work the next day. Oh, what's that? You don't think anything could beat $225 million of...
I just don't think he would be going to work the next day. No. he won't be working at the same place, would he?
It's Harry Carey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever had an opportunity where you've gone online and they've got it wrong?
And when you say an opportunity...
Where you're buying something and they've got it wrong?
What, like shares and stuff?
And I booked a holiday once. And don't ask me why. I went onto the Hong Kong website of a travel company. It was like the .hk. They have like the .com and the .uk. They have all different sites around the world to cater for different markets. And I went, for some reason, on the Hong Kong website, and I got a holiday which should have cost me something like $3,000. I got it for like 280 quid.
Wow!
And I was doing the conversion on the calculator, and I even got like all the XE sites up and all the currency exchange. I'm thinking, this can't be right. I'm saying to my missus, like, look at this. So this can't be right. In 7 days, all inclusive, for like 300 quid. So she's like, book it and see what happened. And we booked it. And when I got there, they said, we made a mistake. Well, they called me and said, we made a mistake, but we have to honour it.
Yeah.
And they said, would you donate more? So I went, absolutely not.
How
got all of it for 300 quid.
He did well there.
Oh, the book's otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Damage? Sweet summer child, we're not even close to the level of economic damage humans can cause and have caused. Imagine being a visionary designer, convinced you've dreamed up the perfect car that the masses will flock to buy, only to find that in fact nobody gave a damn. Let's go back to 1958. Ford launched a new line of cars named the Edsel, a large family car. Supposedly, they'd proven consumer demand through a series of customer surveys.
I like those big American 1950s, ridiculously long, crazy design cars. I think they look proper cool. Not sure I'd want to drive one because they're like a bus in this country, aren't they, on our roads?
Yeah, pretty big, definitely.
They look good.
Still smaller than yours.
But at the time, Ford had a bad reputation for basing their data collection on false assumptions, giving them results that would stroke their egos rather than grow their business. Nobody cared much about the release of the Ford Edsel. As if making a car nobody wanted wasn't bad enough, they ended up launching it in an environment where nobody could have afforded it even if they did want it. Just as the model was released to the public, the stock market declined, spooking consumers and putting them off of making any big purchasing decisions. It's estimated that the car manufacturer lost around $250 million due to their poor research and timing. Ouch. But now it's time to take things up a notch. Before last,
I bet they're worth a fortune, them, if you can get your hands on one now.
Probably would be, yeah. If you got a pristine one, I bet they would be.
Things that are a flop like that, where they're just, you can't get them.
Sort of become iconic, don't they, I suppose? Ones like that.
It was a U.S. state. It was owned by Russia. But in 1867, the nation decided that the territory was more of a resource drain than a gold mine, and it decided to sell instead. So Russia struck a deal with the U.S. and agreed to sell them Alaska for $7.2 million. Little did they know how profitable Alaska would turn out to be. Russia thought they'd already exhausted the gold reserves of the region, but there turned out to be vast amounts of rich gold and oil resources still there. So much so that the US made a profit of $700 million from buying its 49th state, meaning Russia lost the same amount. Come on, Russia. I don't condone colonization, but if you're gonna do it, then at least be smart about it. You might have thought that sounded like a big loss, but until now, we've been talking baby money. Now it's time to talk about those 9-figure numbers. The Northrop B-2 Spirit, also known as the Stealth Bomber, is the most expensive plane in the US Air Force, worth a ridiculous $1.4 billion. So expensive that the government could only afford to make 21 of them. You'd think we'd handle something that valuable incredibly carefully, right? But you'd be wrong. One day, a pilot was on a test flight in Guam when the plane began to stall during takeoff, crashing straight away. Yep, that's right, the plane was completely destroyed, all because there was moisture in the engines and a technique to remove it properly got lost in translation, resulting in water entering a sensor and making it faulty. You'd think they might have given the job of maintaining a plane worth $1 billion to a world-class expert, not the intern. Luckily, the two pilots escaped carefully and their lives were priceless, of course. You might think you can never be in the running to lose so much money as long as you'd stay away from machinery and business, but billions have also been lost at the hands of man's oldest enemy, lust. After Tiger Woods' infamous cheating scandal, the golfer is estimated to have lost $12 billion. Now that might seem like a crazy amount considering he was never actually worth that much in the first place, but the estimate includes value lost by shareholders of his former sponsors as a result of the affairs, as well as the sports star's substantial personal loss. Would it have really been that hard to keep it in your pants, Tiger? Do you think we can triple?
Have we reacted to Bill Burr's bit about that? About great men falling?
I think we did, didn't we? Yeah.
He talks about Arnold Schwarzenegger as well.
Yeah.
We have, haven't we? Because
Yeah.
I've definitely seen it quite a few times.
Yeah.
And it's so good, isn't it? Propaganda.
Yeah, it is.
So that's calling Tiger Woods' wife a babysitter.
Yeah, that's
she's
right,
got like billions in a divorce settlement.
Size of that mistake? You bet we can. Everyone has heard of Steve Jobs, and if you're a real Apple enthusiast, you might have heard of Steve Wozniak. But what about Ron Wayne? He's the third founder of Apple, but he decided to sell his equity back in 1976. Why would he make such a crazy decision? Wayne joined Jobs and Wozniak as an old hand with more experience and expertise, and it was precisely because he was at a different stage of his life that Wayne wasn't prepared to take the financial risks involved in pursuing a project like Apple. Whereas Jobs and Wozniak were younger men, aged 21 and 23, with nothing to lose. Wayne had assets and became terrified of losing everything he had, so he decided to sell his shares back to the co-founders. Wayne once held 10% of the shares for Apple, and guess how much he sold them for? $800. If only he decided to wait until 2013, his share would have been worth $35 billion. There's no two ways about it, that's a massive loss. But now, think even...
If I had shares in a company that was, a start-up or anything and really needed the money, I always feel like I'd say, I'll sell you 8% of my 10% and just keep 2 and forget about it. And just that be that. Speculative.
It's easier said than done when you know the outcome.
Hindsight's, wonderful thing, isn't it, in
Like I
these
said before,
cases.
it happened to my dad, and he turned it down because he needed the money at the time, so he couldn't afford to do it. So he just flat out declined it.
Yeah, because things like this, they're always a gamble, aren't they? When you're starting up new companies and people invest in them, you've got to be able to, you've got to be able to
He's already part
be
of the
prepared to
company,
lose
though.
money, haven't you? Oh,
He's not like an outside investor coming in
But
and
I think
buying.
he was
stuff,
looking at
so-
the future, thinking that because he had assets, he could be losing everything that he owns.
Yeah.
But obviously, with him being probably a bit older, maybe owning a house and stuff.
I'm sure he's been looked after over the years.
I'm sure.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
I guess so.
Yeah, but not 35 million. Was it
Billion.
35 billion?
Billion,
Sorry.
yeah.
35 billions worth of being looked after.
That's Walter White in Breaking Bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
He essentially does that with that. His rich friends, that he started that company as well and then sold the shares cheap, didn't he?
Bigger. You might have heard of the dot-com bubble, a huge speculative bubble that built up at the start of the millennium. Investors had begun to suspect that the internet and technology would be big, but they weren't quite sure what form that would take or which companies would make it. Basically, lots of people got overexcited and started making some pretty big gambles. 2 companies pitted as future successes were Time Warner and AOL. The 2 media companies merged together in 2000 at the height of the bubble. It was believed to be a genius move that would revolutionize the industry. Hey, stop laughing. Time Warner's cable network and content would merge with the online presence of AOL, making them unbeatable together. At least that was the theory. It couldn't have been further from the truth. Firstly, the workplace cultures of the two firms didn't exactly merge together smoothly. Then things went from bad to worse, and the bubble finally burst, plunging the economy into a recession and harming the merger. AOL was hit hard and forced to take a write-off almost of $100 billion by 2002, taking its stock value from a whopping $226 billion to a measly $20 billion. Ouch! By 2009, Time Warner left AOL with a valuation of $36 billion, leaving AOL with a value of just $2.5 billion. All in all, the whole thing resulted in a total loss of $146 billion. Well, if that doesn't make you feel better about every stupid way you've wasted money, then I don't know what will. Check out our videos about the most
interesting that.
It helped my frame of mind a little bit.
Surprised you're on there, Dave.
No, I got nowhere near that sort of money to lose.
Hey? Oh, wow.
It's tough to watch things like that, though, isn't it, in your situation?
I'm all right. It'll be over soon.
We'll see.
You'll come through at the end.
Maybe Infographics will do a video about me in a couple of years' time.
You never know.
Crime Watch might.
Yeah.
It was good.
There are some good ones. Like I say, I think the lottery ticket one, you just don't throw anything away, do you?
Not all the lottery tickets.
Absolutely.
I've thought about it a couple of times, and I've been sort of dating someone new, sleeping over at the house for the first time with a lottery ticket in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I've legitimately sat there and thought, what if I won on this ticket now? What would I do? And I'm like, well, instantly you sign your name on the back of the ticket. You don't say anything about it because it would disappear. I'd probably make my excuses and be like, I've got to go, I feel ill.
Yeah.
Go and claim my ticket and then
read about me.
Yeah. No, because you can't, like, there's lots of people out there that would nick a ticket, or you know, something could fall out your wallet while you're around at someone's house.
Yeah, but I think them obstacles are like taken care of now. I don't think that's something you can get away with now.
Yeah, they are, because they've got to know where you bought the ticket, how you paid for it.
And invariably CCTV in these places all the time, so they know pretty much. Well, they know exactly when the ticket was bought, don't they? And so there's always proof that way, isn't there?
It's carelessness, no. I mean, it's many times. I mean, I play the lottery. I don't even know what numbers I pick. It's random. I don't even get a ticket. It's online. So it's a direct debit that comes out my account every week. You know, it's so I don't even know.
Have you checked your account balance recently? It's like 4 million.
I'm not that low. No, but I see payments going in quite regular from the lottery, like 50 quids, 40 quids, things like that. Quite regular.
Yeah.
So we win often.
Yeah, very nice.
Without the problem of having to lose a ticket.
Absolutely, you don't want to do that. Some of these startup companies really intrigue me. I always think I'll go into the stock market and think, what's going to be the next big thing? But I've got one for you. Have you?
I'll show you later.
Don't tell me now.
Yeah. I'll show you. I'm not going to tell you now. I'll show you later.
Yeah, all right.
You can buy. You can invest in Bitcoin on PayPal now. You know.
I just don't get Bitcoin at all, though.
It's just virtual money.
Yeah.
You don't need to know about it unless you're mining it, or you just imagine you're buying a stock or an asset.
Yeah.
And you can watch. You know, it peaked at about 60 grand. At the end of last year, then it's dipped to about 30 grand at one point this year, and it's constantly fluctuating. So I've been tempted. You know, if I see that it's on 20 grand per Bitcoin, you can just invest a few £100.
Yeah.
There's quite a few versions as well, isn't there now?
There's loads of different crypto. It's not really my thing, but I know a lot of people have lost a lot of money.
I think you've got
made money.
Yeah, that's it. You can lose money as well, can't you? You've got to have a bit of an idea if you're like an investor, I think. Unless it's just for a bit of fun, a few quid.
I'd be talking a few £100 if I did it. I wouldn't be talking thousands or anything.
Yeah.
Get you a little bit.
Playing
bit Bitcoin.
Tiny bit.
Tiny bit of coin. Yeah.
Nibble.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers. Guys.